There is a Nigerian Army barracks in Jos. Rukuba Barracks, one of the most significant military installations in central Nigeria, sits within the same local government area where the Palm Sunday massacre took place on March 29, 2026. Minutes away, soldiers, equipment, command structure, the full institutional apparatus of the Nigerian military, present, resourced and stationed in the same geography where Nigerians were being shot in a marketplace at 8 o'clock on a Sunday evening. The attackers arrived at 8 p.m. The Nigerian Army arrived at 8:45 p.m. 45 minutes. In those 45 minutes, in a community surrounded by one of Nigeria's largest military barracks, men on motorcycles shot indiscriminately through a student community, a market, residential homes. They left, and then the military arrived. But the timing is not the most disturbing part of this story. The most disturbing part is what the eyewitnesses said about what the attackers were wearing, and what the community did when the actual security forces finally arrived the next morning to impose a curfew. Today, on Afro News HQ, we are going to examine every documented eyewitness account, the governor's own words, the protest that happened the next morning, and the question that the Nigerian Army, the Plateau state government, and the federal government have all refused to answer in 26 years of Middle Belt massacres. Where were they? And why does their arrival always follow the death, never precede it? Most channels will give you the headline. We give you the architecture behind it. If you have never been here before, you just found Nigeria's most analytical political channel. Subscribe, because what comes next in this video is the part they hope you never piece together. The single most disturbing detail in every eyewitness account. Let me state this precisely, because this is the detail that this channel will not allow to be buried in the general noise of Nigerian security commentary. Eyewitness Nyam Isaac, speaking directly to Sahara reporters, said, "Gunmen came around 8 p.m. to a place called Rukuba and shot randomly at people. It is a market setting. People who saw them said they came in soldier khaki. They left many injured." Soldier khaki, military uniforms, on the men who were doing the killing. This is not a fringe account. It is the primary eyewitness testimony published by Sahara Reporters, one of Nigeria's most credible investigative outlets, and it has been corroborated in the broader pattern of reporting. Sahara Reporters' own headline confirmed the detail. Plateau attack, gunmen in military uniforms kill several on Palm Sunday. What the protesters said the next morning. On the morning of March 30th, 2026, while the 48-hour curfew was in effect, hundreds of Rukuba residents defied the curfew and flooded the streets in protest. The protest took place at the exact location of the attack. Videos from the protest circulated widely on social media, showing residents chanting and demanding government action. But what one protester said to a journalist present at the scene is the detail that breaks this story open. The protester said directly on camera, "People are outside because of the attack that happened yesterday. They chased the security men because they are not doing any help right here." On record, protester at Rukuba, Jos, March 30th, 2026. "They chased the security men because they are not doing any help right here." And another account from the same protest, "They want to fire tear gas." The security forces who arrived after the massacre to enforce a curfew were chased by the residents they were supposed to be protecting. The community's relationship with the security apparatus in that moment was not gratitude for a delayed response. It was rage at an institution they do not trust, do not believe protected them, and whose presence after the killing felt like insult added to injury. The 8:45 p.m. arrival, what it means. ACI Africa's reporting, citing local sources, documented that security personnel, including the Nigerian Army, arrived at approximately 8:45 p.m. The attack began at approximately 7:50 to 8 p.m. That is a response window of between 45 minutes and 1 hour for a military installation that is by Nigerian Army's own documentation located within Rukuba area of Jos, North, the same local government area where the attack occurred. This channel will state what that means precisely. A military barracks is not simply a place where soldiers sleep. It is a rapid response institution. In any functional security architecture, a barracks within the same local government as an active shooting incident should be capable of deploying within minutes, not 45 to 60 minutes. The Nigerian Army's own doctrine requires rapid response to civil disturbance and terrorist activity. The gap between doctrine and the 45-minute arrival time in a community beside its own barracks is not an operational footnote. It is an accountability question. The Irigwe youth movement warned about the threat hours before the attack, as we reported in our previous video on this massacre. Hours, not minutes, hours. Security operatives were allegedly stationed in the area. We will return to what that advance warning means in the context of the 45-minute response time. The attackers used machetes before guns. One account describes the attack escalating from bladed weapons to firearms as it progressed. This means the attack was not a rapid drive-by. It was a sustained, extended assault. We will return to how a sustained, extended assault of this duration is possible within the response radius of one of Nigeria's largest military barracks. Governor Mutfang's statement, precise language. Governor Caleb Manasseh Mutfang of Plateau State condemned the attack in the strongest language used by any Nigerian governor about Middle Belt violence in recent memory. He said, and this channel is quoting directly from his documented statement, on record, "There were no provocations or prior incidents that justify such violence. These attacks weren't reprisals. I have no choice but to conclude that these are terrorist organizations deliberately targeting our people." And in earlier documented statements about the broader pattern of Plateau State violence, the governor used the word genocidal. Let that settle. The elected governor of Plateau State, a man who operates within the Nigerian security architecture, who receives intelligence briefings, who sits in meetings with military commanders and security agency heads, has used the word genocidal and has stated he has no choice but to conclude these are deliberate, organized, and terroristic in nature. He is not an opposition figure making political accusations. He is the governing authority, and his conclusion, based on his access to security intelligence, is that what is happening in Plateau State is deliberate, organized, and terroristic in nature. If the governor of Plateau State has concluded that his state is facing deliberate genocidal terrorism, using those specific words, then the appropriate federal response is a national emergency declaration, a National Security Council emergency session, a presidential address to the nation naming the threat, and a military deployment commensurate with the word genocide. None of these things happened. What happened was President Tinubu condemned the attack and ordered an investigation, the same 7-word response template that has followed every Plateau State massacre for 26 years. The gap between the governor's word and the federal government's response is the most consequential institutional gap in Nigerian security governance today, and the community of Angwan Rukuba paid for that gap with their lives on Palm Sunday 2026. Now, if what I just told you surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know what you think before we get to the part that changes everything. This channel will not choose one answer when the evidence supports multiple. You asked directly, is this a political strategy or an evil orchestration from evil people? AFRO News HQ will give you the analytical answer, which means we will hold both possibilities simultaneously because the evidence supports both, and collapsing them into one would be the same dishonesty we criticized in the death toll underreporting. Explanation 1. Institutional collapse, the systemic failure argument. The first analytical framework is the most uncomfortable for those who want a simple villain, because it points not at specific evil actors, but at an institutional architecture that has failed so consistently for so long across so many administrations that the failure itself has become the system. Nigerian security forces in the Middle Belt have a documented pattern of arriving after massacres rather than preventing them. This pattern predates Tinubu, it predates Buhari, it predates Jonathan. It goes back to the Jos crisis of 2001, the 2008 violence, 2010, 2015, 2018, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026. Every administration has condemned, every administration has deployed, every administration has promised investigation. None has ended the cycle. Under this framework, the 45-minute response time and the military uniform detail are not evidence of conspiracy, they are evidence of an institution that has been under-resourced, under-coordinated, and politically managed rather than operationally reformed for 26 years. The soldiers who arrived late because the system that should have sent them earlier does not function at the speed the threat requires, not because someone ordered them to be late. Explanation 2. Selective non-response, the political calculation argument. The second analytical framework is more disturbing and more consistent with the specific pattern of these attacks. It is the argument that the security non-response is not random institutional failure, but selective political management of which communities receive rapid protection and which do not. The Plateau state government has stated that advance warnings were given before multiple attacks in recent years, and security forces either arrived late or not at all. The IYM warned hours before this specific attack. In the Kwara State Ekwa Church attack 1 week earlier, 8 hooded attackers were visible a kilometer away 8 minutes before they reached the church, and no security response intercepted them. Pattern by pattern, the communities that are consistently not protected are predominantly Christian, predominantly indigenous, predominantly in the Middle Belt. The communities where rapid security response is most reliable are consistently different. That pattern, if it is a pattern of selective non-response rather than uniform institutional inadequacy, constitutes a political choice about whose lives the security architecture is designed to protect. Under this framework, the 45-minute response and the military uniform detail are evidence not of conspiracy at the tactical level, but of a structural policy choice at the institutional level about where resources are directed and where they are not. Explanation 3. Infiltration, the military uniform question. The third analytical framework is the one that the eyewitness testimony forces us to address directly. Men in soldier khaki, men who looked like the Nigerian military, who entered the community, shot people and left, and were gone by the time the actual military arrived 45 minutes later. There are 3 possible explanations for military uniforms on attackers. 1. They were real military personnel acting outside orders, rogue actors within the security architecture. 2. They were civilians using military uniforms as disguise to create confusion, fear, and to prevent immediate identification. 3. They were security sector collaborators, not uniformed military themselves, but individuals with access to military equipment acting with the knowledge or complicity of elements within the security structure. This channel cannot determine which of these 3 explanations is accurate. No investigation has been completed. 3 arrests have been made. No charges have been filed. No military investigation has been announced. But the eyewitness testimony cannot be explained away, and the fact that it has produced no official response from the Nigerian Army is itself an accountability failure that deserves its own analysis. In 2018, a judge in Plateau State delivered a landmark ruling in the Gashish massacre case, finding that security forces had been complicit in enabling attacks on communities by withdrawing from positions before attacks and returning after. That ruling was largely ignored by the national media and by federal security architecture. In 2020, Amnesty International documented a pattern of delayed response by Nigerian security forces to attacks in the Middle Belt, describing it as a recurrent failure and calling for independent investigation. In 2023, the UN Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial Killings expressed concern about the pattern of security force non-response to communal violence in Nigeria's Middle Belt. Every year, the documentation accumulates. Every year, the pattern continues. The Jos Palm Sunday massacre is not an anomaly in this documentation. It is the latest entry in a file that has been open for 26 years. Is this political strategy or evil orchestration? Here is the most honest answer this channel can give, based on the documented evidence. It is not one or the other. It is both, operating simultaneously at different levels. At the level of the attackers, this is organized, deliberate, ideologically motivated violence. Governor Mutfwang has said it. International human rights organizations have documented it. The pattern of targeting Christian farming communities, student communities, market settings is not random. The targeting of Christian farming communities, student communities, market settings is not random. Evil intent by organized actors is the most parsimonious explanation for a pattern this consistent across this many years. At the level of the Nigerian state, this is political management of violence, not a conspiracy to enable specific attacks, but a political decision repeated across administrations of different parties and different presidents to treat the Middle Belt crisis as a problem to be managed rather than a threat to be defeated. Managed means condemn the attack, deploy additional troops, impose a curfew, announce an investigation, wait for the news cycle to move, repeat. Defeated means build permanent community protection architecture, prosecute perpetrators to conviction, remove political cover for the communities that provide logistical support to attackers, and treat the governor's word, genocide, with the institutional seriousness it demands. The community of Angwan Rukuba is not asking for Afronews HQ's analysis. They are asking for protection. They warned security forces hours before the attack. The security forces did not respond in time. The attackers wore military uniforms. The military arrived 45 minutes after the shooting started. The community chased the security forces away the next morning. That sequence, warning given, response absent, killers in uniform, military late, community in rage, is not a mystery. It is a 26-year-old institutional failure wearing a fresh wound. The advance warning given by the Irigwe youth movement hours before the attack means one of two things. Either the security apparatus received the warning and could not act on it fast enough, in which case the institutional capacity is so degraded that hours of advance notice are insufficient, or the warning was received and a decision was made not to act, in which case the question is who made that decision and why. Neither answer is acceptable. Both answers require accountability that no investigation currently underway in Plateau State is designed to produce. The military uniform detail remains unexplained and uninvestigated. 3 suspects have been arrested. Their connection to the military uniform detail has not been publicly established. If the arrested suspects were wearing military uniforms, the Nigerian Army has an institutional obligation to explain how civilian attackers obtained them. If they were not, then the eyewitness who said soldier khaki was describing something the police investigation is not addressing. Either way, the military uniform question has a specific institutional owner, the Nigerian Army. Its silence on this specific detail is an accountability failure that is separate from the general security failure, and it deserves to be named as one.
The people of Angwan Rukuba asked one question by chasing the security forces away on Monday morning. They did not chase them away because they were ungrateful. They chased them away because they understood, with the clarity that only comes from burying your own, that the security forces who arrived after the killing cannot be the same institution you trust to prevent the next one. That is not rage. That is a rational assessment of institutional failure. You now know something that most Nigerians watching the news tonight do not know. What you do with it is up to you. Share it, debate it, challenge it. That is how democracies survive. Afro News HQ. Nigeria deserves better analysis. See you in the next one.